Hello and welcome to today's session from the Scottish Association for the Teaching of English, SATE, whose logo you can see in the top right hand corner. Thank you for joining us. We've got a lot of people here, which is fantastic. And thank you for bearing with the process of getting here. So at the start, we were only hoping to get a few, maybe 100 people maximum, which is the number of tickets. At the last look, we had almost hit 1,000 people buying tickets, which is actually absolutely fantastic. So what is the session about today? Well, we are looking at blended learning, and it's this new buzzword, this thing we're all going to be doing in August, and hopefully I'll have some more sort of enlightening ideas about that if you're feeling a bit confused. We're going to look at how to use Google Classroom and GSuite to take your existing materials and digitize them. So hopefully you're going to see how to use a mixture of live and asynchronous tasks, and I'll talk about what I mean by asynchronous in a bit. But really, how you can take things that you're already doing and put them online, and also maybe some hints on with blended learning how to be a bit more consistent between students that are in class and students who aren't able to make it into school for whatever reason. Okay, in terms of questions and answers, it'd be really, really great if you're answering questions in the chat on the live stream on the right-hand side of where you can see me talking. We will be trying to have a question and answer session at 3 o'clock. It might mean that I speed through a few things in order to get onto that, but hopefully there'll be plenty of time to answer the questions at the end and as we go through. So if you see anything that's confusing for you and you want a bit more information, then please ask in the chat. Oh, went too far. We've got a couple of people there answering questions as well. Thanks very much. So just a quick introduction. My name's Tom Coles. I am an English teacher, a classroom teacher in Portray High School on the Isle of Skye with Highland Council. And there's all these badges everywhere, all these bumper stickers. It's getting a bit silly at the moment. But I'm also the Glow GSuite product owner. And what that job is designed to do is I'm encouraging people to use the tools available in GSuite within Glow and within Scotland. So 1 day a week, that's my role for Education Scotland. But most of the time, I'm just a classroom teacher in Highland Council. But you can see a badge at the bottom here. I've also been involved in Highland Council's Essential Skills digital training. So I've been training people up in Highland Council on the skills they need for GSuite. SATE is the Scottish Association for the Teaching of English. It's been around for a long time. Doesn't have a massive membership these days, but it's a great organisation. And please click the subscribe button because next week we have some more sessions coming up on things like reading for understanding, analysis and evaluation with Raymond Soltysek, a former lecturer at Strathclyde University in the Department for Education. Okay, who's the team today? So in the background at the moment, I have 3 people helping me out today. Olivia Crook, who's a primary school teacher living in Glasgow, Robert Quigley, who's a primary head teacher in Inverness, and Niall Ridgway, who's a primary teacher in Inverness. And they'll be there in the comments to answer your questions, and also in the background, they'll be putting comments up on the screen so I can see them and hopefully answer them as we go along. Okay, so I'm actually just going to jump straight in. There's going to be some opportunities to meet everyone else in the team a little bit later on. So what is blended learning? This word has been thrown around by the Scottish Government and Education Scotland and education departments all over the country. And I think everyone's just coming to terms with the idea of blended learning and really trying to define it for themselves. And I think that's the only way we can do it. I'm going to start off actually with this pink box on the right and just say that as far as I can tell from the conversations I've been having with people across the country, it's going to be completely different in every area of the country. If you're living in a rural area, it's going to be very different to if you're in a city area. If all your students walk to school, it's going to be very different to if they come by bus. It's going to be very different if you have an ASN unit. It's going to be very different depending on the stage that you are teaching and focusing on. So not only is it going to be different in every authority, it may well be different in every school, in every classroom, and from day to day. You'll see some students some of the time. You may see some students none of the time. You may have some students who are in all of the time because they're working in a hub with you. So it's difficult to say exactly what blended learning is. And I hope that I can talk about some of the issues and some of the things that usually feature in blended learning. But I'm not necessarily going to tell you exactly what it is in your school. That's going to be something for you to decide with your colleagues. So what is blended learning? It's a mixture of these 3 things as far as it seems to me. So in-class learning. So some of the time you are going to be in class with students. And from what I've read and from what I've experienced in my own school, the first thing that in-class learning is going to be important for is focusing on social needs. So obviously our young people have got, and we have as well, gone through a very stressful period of time, a confusing period of time where things have changed very quickly. There's been long periods of boredom, and there's been long periods of confusion and maybe what seems like chaos. And our young people are going to need the skills and the tools to kind of restore their sense of community at school and restore maybe their own mental health and our mental health, and spend some time doing that. And I think in some of the schools that are doing well with blended learning, they've said at the very start of the year, come August, that is the first thing we're going to do. We're going to try and bring people together and work out how everyone's feeling. I think the other thing to say about in-class learning is when you've got the students in front of you, you need to use your skills to the best of your ability. You need to make the best use of the skills that you've got. You've got the power in a classroom. You've got the power to change everything in a classroom. But that means that maybe some tasks that could be done at home, things that are maybe more routine, don't focus on those in class. I think you need to think about what makes sense when you're in class to focus on. And remember, the classrooms are going to be very different. I was in school today, deep cleaning and rearranging my classroom and getting prepared for social distancing. So obviously there's going to be some tasks, especially for people in early years and down the primary age, including for people like me as well in secondary. It's going to be a very different classroom layout, and the kind of tasks you can do in class are going to change. So things that include sharing resources are obviously going to be very, very difficult to do. So in-class learning, it isn't going to be exactly the same as classrooms were before the lockdown. The second type of learning is what people are calling synchronous live learning, and this is very closely related to the idea of asynchronous offline learning. Some schools are able to do this. Maybe they're using Google Meet or they're using another tool in order to broadcast live to students in their homes. And that's what I mean by synchronous live learning. A bit like I'm doing here, talking to my students over an internet connection. I've been doing that with my students for about 50% of timetable, and it's worked relatively well. But some authorities won't have those tools at their disposal, and it might be a bit difficult in certain situations, especially if children don't have technology at home. Asynchronous offline learning is really where blended learning is different to all other teaching. So what we're looking today at is really how to provide asynchronous offline learning. And that means it's not synchronized with the teaching. So you might prepare materials in advance, send them to students, and they can do them at the pace that they want to do them and at the time they want to do them, because maybe they have caring responsibilities. Maybe it's very difficult for them to do the tasks that you're asking them to do. Maybe they're sharing IT equipment with a parent or with a sibling. So you can't always rely that they're going to be following, you can't always rely on the idea that they're going to be following a timetable when they're at home. So in asynchronous offline learning, students are working with online documents and learning activities. So this could include things printed off and sent home, but I'm going to focus on online activities using Google Classroom. You might be sending them pre-recorded videos that explain different concepts or skills. You might be providing them with feedback. You might be marking work and interacting with them that way via text, or you might be using audio recording tools. And there's some add-ons for different websites that allow you to do little audio snippets in order to give feedback. It will hopefully be supported by parents, but of course that's a big variable. But it also will be supported by you, by teachers. It could be via those comments, via email, by different chat clients, some way of keeping engaged with those students. And that's especially important for students who aren't making it into school for in-class learning. Okay, I've run a recent training session on blended learning. I asked people at the end, what do they think were the biggest issues with blended learning, this brave new world? And you can see the biggest two there are engagement and disengagement. And unfortunately, I don't think anyone has a magic bullet for engagement and disengagement. Some of those problems are, what we can see over here, technological. It's about making sure that your local authority and that you are able to provide the correct resources for your young people so that they can engage. Hopefully, I would hope that any technical barriers to engagement by young people should be easily overcome. It might take a bit of negotiation, an argument, and some creative approaches, but that should be relatively easy to overcome. The main problem is for students who don't have the skill to access online learning easily, or maybe their parents find it hard to help them. And really, I think as teachers, the main thing we can do is make sure that our resources are clear, that the way that we ask people to complete work is clear, and that we're very clear in terms of our organisation, in terms of when we post work and things like that. So if we have a look at the next slide, these are my sort of key principles, and they're not mine. They're things that, as I've discussed with people about this session and what blended learning could be from various different schools across the country, this is the kind of key principles that have come out. The first one is clarity. So whenever you're posting work, you need to make sure that it's clear, that it's descriptive, that they understand what the task is. And that might be simply that every week you set a task that's called numeracy, a task that's called literacy. You might chunk it down to that, using the knowledge that the students already have about different parts of the curriculum. It should always be clear what date that work is due, so how long they have to complete it. Tasks should be explained clearly in written and hopefully sometimes verbal format. I think in a lot of cases we forget that when we're in the classroom, we talk through tasks a huge amount and we explain them in different ways again and again. And if the task is unclear, we make up for that in class by discussing it. If we can't do that, we need to make sure that when we set a task, it's explained in a very clear way, but maybe in various different ways for different sorts of learners. And I think colour is a great thing. One of the great things about using Google Classroom is you're never going to get that scary photocopying bill when you've photocopied 20 colour resources and it's cost £10. You can use as much colour as you want online and it's absolutely free. So we'll look into that as well. The next key principle is brevity, so keep them short. I see sometimes in classrooms that people post an entire week's work in one go at the very start of the week. That might be the way you need to do things based on your working practices and your working time. But what you could do is you could schedule tasks, have instead of one big set of work, chunk it down into 5 different easy to manage tasks, and schedule them using Google Classroom. We'll talk about that. Keep it simple. Obviously, don't try and ask them to do too many different things and too many different skills at the same time. And try and create a culture where you're setting time limits on how much people should be working, and especially how much young people should be working on screens. Now, this might seem counterintuitive as we're asking them to do lots of working on screens with computers. But if you can set a task which allows them to go away from the computer and come back and put some information in, that limits the amount of time spent in front of the screen. Consistency. So the great thing about Google Classroom is it allows this. You can distribute and collect work in a pretty standardized way. You can set work on regular days and times and giving similar amounts of times for similar tasks. You don't want to give a writing task that's 5 minutes one day and then a big surprise when it's an hour the next day, as kids might find that a bit of a shock to the system. And the last thing I think to say is, as a member of the teaching profession, I think you have a duty to your young people to make sure that you're kind to yourself and able to be kind to them. I think a lot of people maybe a lot of young people haven't been able to access the work over this period. And the one thing they don't want to happen is to walk into school and be blamed for that. So we need to take that recovery time. We need to be able to take breaks. We need time to recover. We need to plan to recover. We need to take time to recover. And we need to recover even from the planning. It is a slower process than it has been previously. I think that's the key message, if I can give one. Never mind whether you think you've got everything working, but online learning is often frustrating for everyone, including me a lot of the time, including if my internet connection stops working right now, which I hope it doesn't. Okay, so really quickly, keep the questions coming in and we will be posting those up regularly. What is GSuite? So GSuite is a product developed by Google that brings together actually lots of different types of programs that they've developed over the years. But the idea is they're all there to communicate, collaborate, organize, and engage. Those slogans might not be too descriptive, but the main idea is that you can work online with an entire suite of tools that are all linked together in a really kind of straightforward way that allow you to set work, receive work, mark work, do these sorts of things. Some of you might recognize some of these logos, like Gmail, very popular product. You might not recognize some of them. So the ones we're looking at today, starting off with Google Classroom, then moving on to Google Slides. We're then going to look at Google Docs, Google Forms, and Google Jamboard. And you may have used some of these, but not others. So hopefully you'll be learning something today about how to use the tools. Really quickly, an overview of what these tools are. I know some people know this information already, but just to make clear. So Google Classroom, which is the logo in the middle, I see as the kind of front page of your online classroom. It's the place where you're going to set assignments, you're going to collect work, you're going to communicate with your young people when they're not in class, but potentially when they're in class. You can set an assignment that's going to be completed in class time, but you can set assignments that can be completed at any time. That's the power of it. It links together with all these tools in a fantastic way. So Slides is a presentation tool. it's very similar to PowerPoint. It allows you to create a presentation. Docs is a word processing tool, similar to Word if you've used Word before, but with extra features for collaboration. Sorry if this bar keeps on popping up at the bottom, I can't really stop it. Forms is a survey tool. It allows you to collect information and also create a quiz. We'll look at that. And Jamboard is a bit like the post-it note on the door or on the whiteboard as you walk out of a room. It's great for quick exit tasks and surveys to capture some learning. Okay, so very quickly, what I'm going to do is demonstrate a Google Classroom, and I'm going to be demonstrating these basics. So I'm going to create a Google Classroom. I'm going to be adding pupils, I'm going to be posting an announcement and creating an assignment. I'm going to show you how that assignment works. Now, a little bit of technical wizardry. Let's see if this works. So if I share my screen, I apologize that you can see behind the scenes there. I am going to jump in to a new Google Classroom. So the great thing about all Google products is to get there, all you have to do is go to the name of the product, so classroom.google.com. You can create shortcuts, you can do all sorts of things in your browser. I'm just loading this up in my browser. So if I go to classroom.google.com, it will take you to all of my classrooms that I use to teach with. And you can see that I've got some demonstration classes, I've got some training classes, but I've also got my S2, my S3 classes. And you can see here that I can see what work is due for them later on. You can also see my English teachers classroom here that we've just set up to share things called Screaming into the Void, which gives you an idea of our mood some days. However, if you were using Google Classroom for the first time, this would be a blank page. And what you do is click Create. Now, you've got Join Class, which is an option for students, or Create Class. I'm going to create a class because I'm going to be teaching this class. And I'm going to call it Primary Demo Class. You will want to use something a bit more descriptive. So there might be Room 211 if that's your room. It might be called anything you like. You're probably going to want to put your name in, so I'm going to put Mr. Coles in as well. Section, that could be the level you're at, so P3. Subject doesn't really apply if you're a primary school teacher. Room, you might put your room in there. I'm actually 211 at Portray High School. So I'm creating my classroom, and it'll take a little moment to set that up. And I will babble for a bit while it's doing that. This is really, really useful. Depending on how you want to create classes in your school, you'll use a different approach. Remember that especially if you're teaching multiple classes, or young people might be in multiple classes, then they are going to need a really descriptive title because they might have lots and lots of different classes which they are part of, and they will need to be able to tell the difference. For example, if you're at secondary level, you don't want to just say S2 because S2 will have lots of different classes. I would always say S2 English. Anyway, primary demo class. So having a look around the classroom really quickly, it's got lots of different parts to it. I'm going to go through this all very quickly. If you need more detailed training, we'll talk about that at the end. So this stream is a bit like your Facebook stream. You can share a comment with it. So hello, everyone. I'm going to share that with my class, and that's just a comment on the front. Some of you may have been using this sharing function to share work, because, for example, when you create a comment, you can add a file from Google Drive or a link or anything else there. I would say actually that's not a great way to organize all your work because it means you can't receive work in the same way. If you find that students are emailing things to you or sharing them with you, then it's probably because they don't know how to use the function that I'm going to show you in a second, which is an assignment. So I'm going to, instead of this stream tab, I'm going to click the classwork tab. And here it tells you you can assign work to your class here, create assignments and questions. Well, I'm going to create an assignment. You can see lots of other options, like reusing posts, really, really powerful. You can take a post from another classroom and post it straight away, saves a lot of time. Material, which means they can't hand anything in. A question, which means they can respond with answers. A quiz assignment, which is a Google form, or an assignment, which is what I'm going to do here. And you can attach anything to an assignment. But here, I'm going to create my first assignment, which is a grammar task. Maybe we could just call it literacy. Okay, a literacy grammar task. And that's a title which will appear for students. I'm going to give them a bunch of instructions. So complete the work on the slide you have attached to this assignment. I'm actually going to reword that because they haven't attached it. I have the slide which I have attached to this assignment. Now, obviously, you could be more descriptive than that, and you probably will want to be in order to give instructions. And I am going to think about when I want them to complete this task. So, and in different ways, you can do lots of different things over here. For example, how many points I want to be out of, a percentage, 100, or out of 5, because I know I'm going to have 5 different tasks, so I'm going to mark it out of 5. You'll see when I see the resource what I'm talking about in a second. When's it going to be due? Well, what's today? It's Wednesday. Friday. I reckon they can do it by Friday. And what topic is it going to be? Topics are really powerful for organising things. I'm going to group this into just literacy. Literacy. Let's see if I can spell. So that will organise it into that topic on the classroom. The last thing at the bottom here, rubrics. Rubrics are really great. They're really a marking grid. I'm not going to go into that today because it's a bit too complicated. But if you want more training on that, it is available. If you look up here as well, who's it for? Well, it's for this primary demonstration class. But if I wanted to post it to other classes that I'm a teacher in, and there's quite a lot there, you probably won't have this many, I could tick these boxes and this same assignment would go to all those classrooms and be seen by the students there. And also here I've got all students. So maybe you have in the primary classroom students working at different levels. So at the moment I don't have any students, but if I did, here there would appear the names of those students. I could tick the box and only the students with the tick would get the assignment. So for example, if you're saying this is a literacy grammar task and it's a level 1 task, right? You could assign it to only those students who are level 1. And the other students wouldn't see it, and you assign them a different task. Okay, last thing. What is the task? What is the task today? So you have to add materials for the task with this add button. You could create a new one, but here I'm going to add. So if I click add here, I can choose to upload a file from my computer, a YouTube video, a link to another website where you might say that the students have to log in, maybe use SumDog or something like that. You could link them to that. But I know I've created a resource already on Google Drive. It's a pretty straightforward resource, and I'm going to show you this for a second. So blended learning, I believe it's not that. Let's see, it's this one here. You can see a picture of Miss Crook in the background there. So I'm going to add this. And here's the Google slide that I've created that's going to have my task on it. And I'm going to talk you through that in a second. However, over here, this drop-down menu is really, really important. So if I were to assign this like this, all of the students would be able to view that file, but they wouldn't be able to edit it. They wouldn't be able to change anything. They could see it and it would be like a little presentation. However, if I do the drop down here and click on students can edit the file, then they can change the file, but it's all the same file. So they'd all be editing the same file and it'll be chaos. Instead, I'm going to make a copy for each student. And this means a bit like your photocopier. When you're photocopying a worksheet, it's going to send each student in your classroom a copy of that document, and they can work on their own document, and they're not going to interrupt anyone else's work. Okay, fantastic. It's ready to go. I'm going to click Assign. Or what I could do is hit this drop-down menu. So there's loads of options here. And instead of assigning it straight away, I could save a draft, and I could work on it a bit more and assign it later. I could delete it, or I could schedule it. Now, the schedule stuff's really, really great. If you know that you're not going to be in or able to work because you've got childcare commitments, but you want to set work for the entire week, you could schedule all your work on a Monday or on the week before to appear later on. So say I want to schedule this for next Tuesday, okay, at 8 o'clock. Let me just check. Must be scheduled before due date. That's why I can't do that. Thank you. I'll schedule it for Thursday. So that means that will appear tomorrow at 8 o'clock, and the students won't be able to see the work until then. It will appear on their timeline then, and they won't be able to do it straight away. Anyway, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually just going to assign it straight away. And this is going to create those copies for every single student. It's going to put it onto the stream. It's going to make it available in the classwork. And also, if you're using Google Guardian email updates, it'll send, at the end of the week, it'll send an email telling parents that this work is due. Now, open this up. I'm not going to show you today the student view because it's very similar to what you're going to see here. Here's the actual resource. So what sort of resources do I think are really, really useful for blended learning at primary level? I had to get a bit of input from a few of my colleagues to sort of know exactly what level to pitch things at, but here's a really, really basic grammar task. So you can see it's got lots of instructions, lots of nice color to engage people. Put these words in the correct order to make 5 questions. And you can use this color. It's got an example already. Who was that for number 1? The number 1 matches with the number 1. They can see the color matches with the words. And what the students are expected to do here is have a look at this and think about how does this make sense? And it's got instructions everywhere. So remember, the question mark always goes at the end of the question. Remember, capital letter at the beginning of the sentence. You know, basic instructions that help them there. And also, I teach my kids that whenever they see orange, there's a task to complete. So they know that if, and this is just a table, if the table has a orange background, they have to click on the orange and put the answer there. So how old are you? And the kids will be able to do this as well. Where is your school bag? See, that worked earlier. That worked this time. It didn't work previously. The things are coming up in orange because I've set the font to orange already. What color is my jumper? I'm glad I can complete this. And how many sweets would you like? Fantastic. So you can see that's a really, really short task. It's a slideshow. So over here, there could be more slides. So I could create a new slide with task 2, and they would know that they go through each slide and they complete each task. So just go quickly back to my classroom. You can see it there. Go to the stream. You can see that I've posted the new assignment. And that's where we're going to take a really quick question break. So it'd be great if you have any questions in the chat about these first 2 things that I've gone through, which is the creating a Google Classroom and posting a resource that's already been created to it, then that would be great. So I'm going to stop sharing and we are going to come back. And it'd be great to know if we've got any questions that people want to ask in the chat. So are there any you want to put up, Liv? How are we doing? How do you add the children? So when we do the next bit of the demonstration, I will show that. But if you remember on the Google Classroom, the 4 tabs at the bottom, there's one that says people. And in the people tab, you can add pupils, but you can also add other teachers, co-teachers to join in with your class. And actually, that's really useful because you can add anyone who's at your stage, so you can share resources, share whole assignments across, or maybe your PT wants to be involved in every single class, so they can jump in and add things. But also, if for some reason you're ill, you can't make it into school, having another teacher who's able to step in and take that role is great. So how to make a slide interactive? It isn't necessarily that I've made it interactive. What it is that what I've done is I've created a slide, just like a Word document, with spaces that you can type into, yeah, and that the young people can type into. And I've shared a copy with every single student automatically using Google Classroom, and then they've got a copy of that digital document, of that slide, that they can then edit. Now, they could delete everything on the slide, okay? But what I'm using that tool to do, and it's the way lots of people use it, is to create a copy for each student. Fantastic, thanks, Ms. Thompson-Miller. Is use that tool that way to make sure that they're able to change it and complete the work. I could show that, Julia, yeah, how to make the slides interactive. We'll have a look at it. I'll explain that when I'm creating the next task. There was another question that flashed up really quickly about how much work should you be setting for young people. That's up to your school. How much work do you think is appropriate for your young people? What stage, what age are they at? We're, at the moment, in lockdown, teaching about 50% of what we might teach normally. I think that's been the case lots of places. Some young people are doing more, some people are doing less. But I think you have to make sure that there's plenty of learning opportunities for everyone at all stages and ages. Does it calculate how many correct and percent correct? It does. It tells you the average score. If I had a live classroom set up, it tells you the average score for each task. So if a whole class is getting below 50%, you know that. And then you can see their running score for all their assignments. When they submit it, can they edit it again before the due date? Yes, they can. So if they click submit, the young people can go in and click unsubmit. And as long as they do that before the due date, then they won't be marked as late. However, if they hand a piece of work in for the deadline and then they haven't really completed it, and they unsubmit it, and then they resubmit it complete, because they've taken a bit more time to do it, it will say that the work was late, okay? If the class I'm getting next term already use Google Classroom, but I don't, can I simply transfer the children over, or do I need to add them as a new class to my Google Classroom? What you could do is ask the teacher who is their current class teacher to simply add you as a teacher to that class, and then they can either stay in the classroom or they can remove themselves. And then you are the only teacher in that class and you can do everything that any teacher in that class can do. And that's really useful, yeah, for transferring a whole class over. And you can add other pupils, you can remove pupils if maybe some people have left the school or moved to a different class. Okay, that's great. I want to jump into the next bit of content, if that's okay. I'm actually going to do, hopefully, a few of the things that people are asking questions about. Thank you for your questions. Keep them coming. And I can see that Niall, Ridgway, and loads of people are answering questions in the comments, which is great. Hopefully, they can answer those questions that I can't quite get onto. Okay, so sharing my screen really quickly. If I get this going. Okay, so I haven't shown you how to add pupils. I apologize for that. I will do that next, but we'll have a look at it. Okay, so Google Slides. We have looked at that briefly, and this is the slide we were looking at before. And you can see that because I'm presenting this as a slide, I can't click on it, I can't edit it. So I'll show how things are editable in a second. We've had the question break on Classroom and Slides, fantastic. Okay, Google Docs. I am going to demonstrate some basics to do with Google Docs. And I'm going to talk about this thing called a hyperdoc. A hyperdoc is something very, very straightforward. A Google Doc is just a bit like a Word document. It allows you to type things, and it also allows you to provide links that are in the document that allow students to go and find things. It also allows the students to edit things and put things in, a bit like the slides as well. There's really nothing you can do in Google Docs that you can't do in Google Slides, and nothing that you can do in Google Slides that you can't do in Google Docs. It's just about thinking what's best for each of these tools. Docs is more like text-based. Slides is more sort of image and small snippets of text-based. I'm going to be looking about how to make tasks clear and how to create an interactive resource. So what is a hyperdoc? Well, a hyperdoc is a digital document where all the pieces of information that a student needs are in one document. It's a self-contained kind of unit of work or task. So it's a really, really great idea. It's quite a new idea. You might have heard of a web quest before. It's kind of born out of that web quest idea. I describe Google Hyperdocs as an all-singing, all-dancing version of Google Docs or of a Word document. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this. And I'm using slides for my presentation, so this is going to be interesting. I'm going very fast, so pay attention. Okay, so for example, here's an example of what a worksheet might look like. A little slip that you would give to a young person in class with a picture saying something, depending on the level, write a sentence or 4 sentences or a story about this picture. And you might have a selection of resources around the class. You might have a picture book. You might say, find 5 pictures showing autumn. You might ask them to create a word bank with words describing the autumn scene. And then, and this is actually for a higher level probably, turn your ideas into a descriptive story of at least 10 sentences. Remember to use proper punctuation. Now, you could post this task up with a description and they would go away and do it in their jotter. They would go away and find pictures from different things. But if you turn this into a hyperdoc, hopefully it's going to help with lots of different things here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop presenting this like that. I'm going to stop presenting that way. I'm going to share my entire screen. And once I've done that, I'm going to create a Google Doc. I'm going to do that by going to docs.google.com. Going to docs.google.com will show you every Google Doc in GSuite that you've got. But really all I'm interested in is clicking the Create New Document button. Please, my apologies to those students if you caught their names and their work on Macbeth, but never mind. So you need to make sure always that you've got a descriptive title. So this will be story writing. Okay, really simple. And it's a blank page. Okay, I'm going to go back to that slide with the information on. I'm going to select it. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it in. Okay, now that's just the information that I just had on this document before. Okay, write a sentence, 4 sentences, and a story about this picture. I'm going to reformat this to make it into a hyperdoc and change the tasks a little bit, because one of the key things you've got to think about is a task that makes sense on paper and in a classroom does not always make sense for young people working online. So this is going to be a creative writing task, and I am going to turn that into a title. And then here's my instructions. I'm actually going to turn that into a heading, and I'm going to say, write a story about this picture. Now, they might just go and do that, so I'm actually not going to do that. You are going to write a story about this picture. First, complete the tasks below. Okay, so clear instructions. The first one is find 5 pictures showing autumn. Okay, let's think about how to do that. So what do we want them to do? We want them to have 5 pictures showing autumn. I find that if you want kids to insert anything, like I said before, you've always got to make sure they've got a place to put it. So insert a table. I want 5 pictures, but I'm going to do it like that. And I've created a table. And I'm going to make it a bit smaller. I'm going to say picture 1. And I'm going to copy and paste it because I'm very lazy. Picture 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I am going to color all these table cells using the little bucket in a kind of orange color, because that's how my kids know that they've got some work to do. Now, these are tiny little things. Everything's going to change if we don't make these a little bigger. So you know they're going to put a picture in there. So let's make these all a little bit bigger so there's space to put a picture. Okay. Now, where are they going to find their picture? So you maybe haven't taught them exactly how to Google and things like that. So we're going to put task 1. Actually, I've got that down there. Find 5 pictures showing autumn. Find 5 pictures showing autumn and copy them into the spaces below. Use this link to find the pictures. And this is a new thing. I would normally use Google image search. I've just been taught by one of my colleagues that there's a website called kiddle.co. And kiddle.co, let's go to it, is a really great website that guarantees that the images that you're showing are safe. Yeah, they're not going to see anything on Google that they don't want to see. But it's powered by Google. I'm going to put the word autumn in, do the search for them. Maybe some of your learners would be able to do this themselves. I'm going to click images, and there's loads of images of autumn here. So I'm going to take that link, which includes the search for autumn. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to use this link to find the pictures. And where it says use this link, I'm going to click the link button, insert a link. There we go. And there's a link. I'm actually going to make this a little bit bigger to make it a bit more user-friendly. I'm going to change the color to a kind of orange color to show it's a task. I'm going to make sure the link is still blue so it's visible. There we go. So that's our first task, and it's interactive because they can use this link to find the pictures. And what they can do is once they've found a picture, say they want this picture, they can drag it, they can drop it into the box. Got a nice autumn picture there. Very nice. There was one with a hedgehog. Where has it gone? There we go. I wanted the hedgehog one. Didn't want that one. Sorry, the hedgehog one is too cute to not include. So this is what the kids will be doing with the task. They'd be dropping their pictures in. So we've done that task. We've turned that into a digital one. The next one will be create a word bank with words describing the autumn scene. So this is task 2. Okay, task 2, create a word bank with words describing the autumn scene. Now, you know, you could have sent them to somewhere like dictionary.com. You could ask them to search for it. But actually for this task, I'm just going to be basing it on their prior knowledge. So type at least 5 words into the box below, because you need to make sure that they understand exactly what they're doing. And if it's 5 words, well, it needs to be a little bit bigger than that, doesn't it? And the words will be nice and big. They should be able to fit those in. Or maybe you can make it smaller, actually. If they're doing it as a kind of as a list, they don't need that much space. So maybe that indicates how much work they're expected to do. So autumn, brown, cold, leaves, etc. That might be the sort of answers they give. It fits in. And it's great using the size of the boxes to indicate the amount of work you're expecting young people to do. It makes it very visual for them. Okay, now turn your ideas into a descriptive story, at least 10 sentences, using this image as a prompt. Okay, so I'm actually going to move this image around. I'm going to use this feature to be able to move it up here, the side there. I'm going to make it a wee bit smaller so it's visible. Okay, move for punctuation. Type your story in the box below. Okay, and then return a couple of times, and I'm going to insert another table. I use tables for this all the time, and it needs to be a bit higher up. And I'm going to drag it down and make it a wee bit bigger because it's an extended piece of writing. So it indicates to them that this piece of writing is a wee bit longer and that they need to focus on it. So put exclamation mark because I love exclamation marks. So that's how you would create a resource. That's how you create a resource. And it's a really simple resource. It's really straightforward, but I think it's very clear and it has a range of tasks, including some digital literacy tasks. Very simple one about using the internet to complete a search, or potentially just you've done it before them with a link, a drag and drop task, a language task, and an extended writing piece of task. Okay, fantastic. So if you're wanting to add this to your Google Classroom exactly the same way that I did it before. So create, and it's still within literacy, create assignment. I would add, go to Google Drive because I've just created that document. It's actually probably hopefully going to be the first thing. Here we go. Story writing, the title is called story writing. I would set a due date. I would do all these things. I would add it to my topic to keep it organized for literacy. And I can assign the work right now. Make a copy for each student, really important. Click assign, and it's going to appear in the stream and in the work, ready for my young people to have a go at it and see what's happening. However, the internet's working really slowly, so hopefully it has worked. There we go. Story writing. So maybe I want to be more descriptive of my titles, but that will do. Okay, moving onwards. So that's been really quick. I am going to just come back really quickly. We're going to take any questions on that. So if anyone's got any questions about using these different features, I'm going to turn back to my slideshow. Then it'd be great to hear some of them if we've got some coming in. Unless we're all feeling completely boggled, hopefully not. Just to remind us of where that what that slide looked like at the start. Can you insert a speech bubble into a hyperdoc? Absolutely, there's lots of graphics that you can include in the hyperdoc. I would say if you're using speech bubbles, you probably want to teach the kids how to do that themselves, but you probably want to use slides. That's the sort of thing where it's really easy to use speech bubbles like that. Great tool. Is there a similar hyperdoc tool in MS Teams? You're advertising the competition. Yeah, absolutely. I use Teams for various things. It's got some great tools, some things that are much better, like Immersive Reader is really good, which is a Microsoft product. But they have lots of similar things. It won't look exactly the same, but it's possible to do all those things, I'm pretty sure. Can you potentially mark people's work and return it to them? Absolutely. So I'm not going to look at the marking view today. I might do if there's a little bit of time, but we're already running on. I'm probably not going to manage to get everything I wanted done, but it is possible to mark them, and there's a marking view within Google, which is really streamlined. It's a bit like having a sheet, a pile of jotters, opening them, mark, opening, leaving comments. It's a slightly different method. For the kids to submit, they literally just edit the document. Then at the bottom, it says upload or something. Yes, pretty much. That's exactly what it does. So they go through, they answer all the questions, and then in their view of docs, because it's integrated with Classroom, in the top right-hand corner, they have a little button saying submit, and they can click submit straight from Google Word, Google Docs rather, or they can submit by going into the assignment. Are there any speech-to-text or voice functions for pupils with mobility issues and can't type? Yes. Google Docs has inbuilt speech-to-type features, which works pretty well. It's even been trained with accents which are far more Scottish than mine, and it works with my family's Geordie accent as well. Is spell check switched off so you can see their own spelling attempts? That is a feature that we hope is coming soon. It is not possible to switch off spell check at the moment. However, there are ways around it by asking them to do it in different features if it's a particular spelling task you're asking them to do. It depends. I tend to see if young people are using the tools, then it works well. Then they are learning those tools as well that they'll use in the future. Can they handwrite their responses? Absolutely. So they could be writing, they could do this task on a piece of paper and then take a photo of it with their phone, or if they've got a Chromebook, they could take a photo with their Chromebook and they could upload that image. Okay, right, we'll save this a bit more for the Q&A at the end. I just want to go back to the presentation and we are going to carry on looking through a few things. So that was slides. Now, this is something that I think is really, really powerful, and it might be the last thing we do today. There was going to be a couple other sections, but the use of Google Forms. And we're going to look at Google Forms and how to turn an existing resource into a self-marking quiz, saving you some time. And if you've got a bank of these, saving you a lot of time, or if you're sharing them with other people, even more time. So here's the resource that I'm going to digitize. It's a pretty straightforward resource about the past tense of verbs. Now, on the left here, I'm talking about how to digitize resources. The main thing to get a hang of is choosing the right tool. Generally, if you're looking for extended writing tasks, you're using docs. Are you going to be manipulating pictures and arranging information? You're probably going to use slides. Are you answering questions in a short format, so not extended writing, where maybe only got to write a little bit? You're using Google Forms. So the way to use Google Forms is, if I come out of this really quickly, I share my screen. I'm going to share my entire screen, and I'm going to go to forms.google.com. Again, it's very simple. It's the name of the tool, forms.google.com, and it takes you straight to it. Now, I've already started creating this form, and hopefully, if everything goes well, I am going to share it with you, and you can have a go at it as though you're one of the students and see if you get the questions right. So I've also, to make it easier for me, I've used this upload an image, add an image thing into Google Forms to put the image in front of me. Okay, and I am going to describe the task using a bit of text. So write the past tense of each of these verbs by changing its middle vowel sounds. The first one has been done to help you. Now, where am I going to put that first one? Well, I might just put it here in a title, and that would be A, get becomes got. Okay, so that's a little example. Now, how do I create the questions? This plus button, add question. So the first question is be, sit. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask, go to this drop-down menu, and I'm going to expect the kids to give me a short answer. So they're going to be given a little box where they can write the past tense of sit, which is going to be sat. So if I go down here and click here, go to response validation. It was turned on automatically for me. I'm going to turn it off and then on again. And you go to here, you don't want a number, you're expecting text, and you want the text to contain the word sat. Okay? And you want an error text, try again if they get it wrong. Click required, which means they have to answer that question. And that means that you're looking for that answer. However, that is not the most powerful way to do this. So that's the way people used to do it, but we're going to try it in a different way. If you go to the settings up here, what you can do is turn this form into a quiz. So I'm going to turn this into a quiz, and that gives me loads more options. So once it's a quiz, what happens is I get this feature in the bottom left-hand corner saying answer key. And I click answer key, and I can put in correct answers. So I want the correct answer to be sat or sat with a capital letter, because some of them might use capitals, you never know. Mark all other answers incorrect. I'm going to award 1 point for getting that right. Okay, fantastic. That's one of them done, one question done. For question C, what have we got? We've got give, right? So the question is give, and then I'm going to make it a short answer. I'm going to go to answer key. Correct answer is going to be gave or gave. If I'm getting this wrong, please don't tell me in the comments. Anyway, make it 1 point. And I'm only going to do a few of these because you'll get the idea. It's a pretty repetitive thing. And there are lots of other ways to use Google Forms that you might know about, but we're going for sing, okay? Sing. And then the answer key for short answer is going to be sang, or capital letter, sang. And those are the expected answers. I'm going to click done. And then I'm going to go to edit here. I am going to make sure that everyone can look at it. I can make sure you can edit it and check how it's presented. I'm going to check it's still a quiz. It's all those things. Save. And then I'm going to click this send button. Actually, I haven't given anyone points for the third one. Look at that. Or did I only do 2? The third one, look, I want to make sure you get your points. So I'm going to click send, and I am going to find the link, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to be very, very cheeky. I'm going to go to live comments. I'm going to put it in the private chat, and one of my colleagues is going to put this link up in the chat so you can see it. So, I mean, how would I add this to a classroom? I'll just show you the people thing in a second. If you click people here, this is the view you get. So I can add teachers. I could add Robert Quigley. There he is. I could add students. I could add him as a student. He wouldn't be very happy about it, Robert Quigley. But you would add your students. Or you could use this code and share the code with them. And then when they press that plus button, they would get the access to the classroom. We'll go into that in a bit more detail, the difference between a class code and invitation, if we want to. However, how would I assign this quiz? I'd go create assignment. I would add from Google Drive, just as I did with the other assignments. I would look for that recent quiz that I've just been editing. I would add it, and I would call it a tense quiz. Nice pun, English pun there. And you've got different options here. this locked mode on Chromebooks, if you use Chromebooks in your own authority, this means that once they open this quiz, they can't look anything up. So if you're doing a test and you don't want them to be able to Google the answers, you can use that only on Chromebooks. You can't do it if your authority doesn't have Chromebooks. However, this other thing is really, really powerful on the left here, grade importing. That means that whatever mark they get on the quiz will automatically be taken into your mark book and will be added to the marks that the students have on their mark book record. So I'm going to click assign there, and then I'm going to show you the mark book really quickly, and then we're going to see whether anyone got any questions right on that quiz. So if you click on this tab at the top, we've looked at classwork, people, and now marks. Now your class doesn't have any students, but here you would have all the assignments across the top, then all your students down on the left, and the mark they got, just like a mark book at the back of your planner in the olden days that were 3 months ago. So if I close this and I look at responses, oh, I've got 0 responses. Okay, well, we'll check that out and see what the issue is and see if we can get that working in a second. Let me just check whether if I change that, it will allow me to send. Let me just check that. I know this is very boring. Restrict users to Highland Council. Right, that was the problem. We'll come back to this in a second. I apologize for that if you were trying to do it. I was locking it into Highland Council. Okay, so just to get back to the presentation really quickly, you can see my face. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go back to the presentation really quickly and we're going to see whether we've got some time to anything else. So this is a quick question break for docs and forms. So if you've got any questions about how forms work or how docs work, then chuck them in the comments, and my helpers here will hopefully chuck them up on the screen, and I'll see if I can answer them. So what's the use of the quiz option when creating resources in the classroom if you can do it more effectively through Google Forms? All that happens when you click on create assignment and then quiz is it creates a form, a blank form for you. So you could have a form that you've already created or which someone shared with you, and you can add that as a resource through Google Drive the way I did it, or I could have created that form by just clicking create assignment, create form, and then filling it in there. But because I've done a little bit of earlier preparation to help me save a little bit of time, I did it this way. I'd created the form already and I added it. That's a good question. Any other questions before we zoom on? Not at the moment. I think the great thing with Google Forms, I'm going to try and jump back to it. Great, I've got some responses, so let's go for that. 44 people have done my quiz. Excellent. So I'm going to share my entire screen, and this is what you get. So here's the questions, and I could delete that bit at the end if I wanted to. But at the top, I've got this tab saying responses, and you can see it ticking up to 50 already for people having a go. 51, fantastic. And if I click on responses here, you can see that on average, people have got 2.94 points. 2 people got 2 points. They got it wrong. Anyway, 50 people got it right. So you can see stats really easily about how many people have answered it, 60, and how many points they're getting on average. So you can tell whether it's been an easy quiz and they've all been getting 100% like they have here, or whether some people are finding it really tricky. You can see the different responses that people went to. So someone went for set, sot, fit. These are not right answers, people. It should be sat, or sat with a capital letter, but you can see the incorrect responses. So you can see the spelling mistakes maybe that your young people are making if they haven't quite learnt the correct sounds and the correct spellings there. You can see that most people are getting that right. Again, people are going for gave and gave. Some people go for give, just typing in the same thing. They get it wrong, unfortunately, but maybe they misunderstood the task there. A bit of reteaching to do. And sing, people are going for sang, sang. Some people went for song. So maybe it's a false friend, the word song, or they've misunderstood the task. You know, what do you sing? A song. Maybe their comprehension there wasn't brilliant. So thank you for getting those wrong on purpose, people. That was very good for my demonstration. But you can see that the majority of people are getting that right. What you can do as well, untitled question, the last one, whoops. If you go by question here, it goes through the different questions and it shows you the different responses, and you can grade them manually if you want to. That ungraded question, I've left that there by accident. But you can also drill down by individual. I'm going to try and not embarrass too many people. Some people might have put their email address in, but you could go along the top here through all the different responses. And if you ask them to record email addresses, and you can see what they did for each response, that's number 6 of responses, number 7, number 8, number 9. If you're asking them to put their name in or their email address, for example, they're using their Glow email address, it would be recorded there, and you would be able to see which student it was. But I've kept this anonymous so as to avoid embarrassing those people who think the past tense of sing is song. Never mind. Okay, so really quickly, we'll go back to the presentation. I'll stop sharing and I'll share my screen again, and that Meet tab, and we've got about 5 minutes left, so I can probably fit one more thing in, and that thing that I'm going to try and fit in is going to be the most stressful thing for me, and it's the use of this tool called Google Jamboard. Jamboard is what I described earlier on as a bit like putting your post-it notes on a board, getting some really quick feedback or some formative assessment. Now, you're going to have to help me out here very quickly. I want a bit of audience participation, but because I think we've got a lot of people in this stream, if everyone was trying to do this, then it wouldn't really work. So I'm asking people who are teachers or residents of Edinburgh, because coffee and martinis are what I lived in Glasgow for 10 years. It's what I associate Edinburgh with. But I am going to share a link with you, and I'm going to ask you to go really quickly to this link while I demonstrate exactly what I'm wanting to do. I put it into the private chat, Liv, so if you find it there, I'm going to stop my screen sharing, and then I'm going to share the Jamboard and show it to you. So what a Jamboard is it's a Google application. It's really, really straightforward, like a lot of Google stuff. And here I've created a post-it note that says, Teachers of Edinburgh, which pub, bar, cafe will you visit first when you can? And you can see all these people coming in from the chat. Hopefully they're all genuinely from Edinburgh, not playing a trick on me. They're anonymous because they're not signed in, but if they were your students and they were signed into their Glow account, you'd be able to see their name. And what I'm going to ask you to do, Teachers of Edinburgh, is have a look down the left-hand side of these different tools. You can play around with them if you want, but you can draw things, you can rub things out. But what I'm asking you to do is a sticky note. So what is the first bar, pub, or cafe which you are going to visit when you first are able to? I'm going to go for the Mosque Cafe because it's a place I can actually remember. It's in Edinburgh. I haven't been for a long time. And I've created that sticky note and I've stuck it up here. Now, Teachers of Edinburgh, could you put down the places that you want to visit using the sticky note creation tool in here? And because no one's doing it yet, I'm just going to check that everyone is allowed to edit it. I've locked you out. Look, the setting here. I'm going to make you editors. So if you refresh that, you should be able to do it now. You should be able to do it now. Create a sticky note here. And what I really like about Jamboard is you'll see in a second, hopefully, it's a really great place when you're doing asynchronous learning. You can give them the link to the Jamboard, and then you can tell them to leave something there, leave a note there, leave a little bit of information. They could say which character they like the most in a story that you've been doing. You could, we need to move these around so we can see them all. They all appear in the same place. You can ask them for any kind of feedback that you're after. You can see it's a little bit chaotic. They're drawing everywhere. Bruhemia, Cairngorm Cafe, the best creature. Cafe Andalus. I have been to Cafe Andalus. What's the Italian place near Waverley Station that's like Lazio themed? Is it Lazio? I can't remember. A really good pizza restaurant. Anyway, you can ask all sorts of things. Hopefully you're not asking your young people what's their favorite cafe or the favorite pub or bar, but you can see the power of this and how useful it could be as a place to put information. There are very similar tools like Padlet and loads of different things like Pear Deck, which are different websites that you can use. But I think the great thing about Jamboard is it's really well integrated with Google Tools and allows you to get started really, really quickly. I hope no one's putting a swear word. Okay, right. I was watching that. Fun. Sometimes you thankfully they didn't go as far as I thought they were going to. Okay, thank you, teachers of Edinburgh. Thank you very much for that. That was, we can have a round of applause for them and virtual pat on the back. And I'm going to stop presenting that for the moment. And you can all have a look at that now if you want to, and it's not going to be too chaotic. Okay, so let's crack on. We've just hit 3 o'clock. So fantastic. Oh, someone's asking me a question. So can you monitor who submits each post-it? You can go into viewing the history of the Jamboard, and you can check exactly who posted each thing. It's not so easy to do, unfortunately. It's not so easy to do. You do have to trust your kids a little bit. What you could do is just say you need to put your name on it. And if there's no name on it, I'm deleting it. And you have the power to delete it. Primary pupils in Highland have Gmail accounts locked to them. How can we do this out Gmail? It's not about having a Gmail account. So it's about having a GSuite account. And for pupils in Highland, they have a GSuite account, which is kind of native to Google. It's a little bit complicated, but you can speak to your IT people for a bit more information about this in your local authority. If you have Google Classroom switched on for your local authority, and not every local authority does have it switched on at the moment, you can ask your, it's actually called their Glow Key Contact. You find your Glow Key Contact, you can talk to them about switching it on and find out whether it is switched on. But once it's switched on, if they've got a Glow account, they've automatically got a GSuite within Glow account, which means if they log into Glow, they'll be able to access the Google Classroom tab on their Glow Launchpad, and they'll be able to use all these tools once they're logged into Glow and they're logged into GSuite through Glow. At the moment, your email address for your G Suite within Glow is slightly different to your Glow email address. There's a few services that people don't have access to outside of individual tenancies, which is what Highland has. Things like Meet is not available in every single authority. We haven't covered it today, but all the tools I've shown you today, I believe, are available and can be used. The difference is that Gmail is not available to people outside the Glow tenancy. If you want more information about that, please get in contact with me. I am the G Suite and Glow contact, and I've tried to make sure that everything you can do today is something you can do if you have G Suite through Glow. But you can definitely do all these things as well if you're on your own individual account. Okay, so I'm going to share really quickly my presentation again. Hopefully it hasn't been death by 1,000 slides. Okay, so I'm not going to do that one because we're going to run out of time. So that's the end of my sort of training, but I would say it's not really training. I've tried to show you some things that I would do, some things that I think could work in classrooms using the G Suite tools, and things that maybe would prompt you to get more training or try these things out yourself. I really like this tweet, which James McCaney said the other day. If you use Twitter, please follow people. We're going to put our Twitter addresses up soon. He said in this tweet, which I think is really, really important, there are two choices with schools. Either the goal is to try to replicate normal as far as possible, or B, the goal is to provide the best possible education in the existing circumstances using available tools. And he claims, I don't know if it's true or not, most people are focused on A, the correct choice is B. And I think that should be uncontroversial. If it is very difficult to teach a full timetable using digital tools, sitting down to a normal timetable and trying to do the same things that you tried to do in classrooms. I don't think it's possible personally, but it is possible to take the learning that you want young people to achieve and provide them with the best possible education in the circumstances with the tools that you've got and with the skills that you've got. And you might need to develop a few more skills. You might need to try some things you haven't tried before, but I think the message has to be, you can't be expected to do something that's impossible, which is deal and create a normal classroom learning experience for young people during a COVID-19 crisis. Blended learning is something different, and it will take a long time for us all to get used to it. Okay, so this is the opportunity. I know a bit five minutes over where I was. This is a question and answer session. If we could bring in my two assistants, Niall and Robert, and bring them in really quickly. Then it'd be great to see some questions and try and field some questions that you've got about anything that we've talked about today, including blended learning as an idea, or anything you can think. Hi, Niall, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. That was brilliant. Thank you very much for leading that.
Thanks. Yeah, you're doing great work in the comments, I can see.
It's too quick for me.
Sorry, Robert?
He was too quick. We were having like a kind of type off. He was trying to see if he could outdo me on quick responses.
Oh,
There were
fantastic.
so many questions.
Yeah.
I really, right. Well, so the unseen person here, Livy, is obviously the one that it's going to be difficult for, because she's got to try and choose some questions that are relevant. I can see one from Jane Thompson. Hopefully Livy's still there. I can see, where can we access Jamboard again? So Jamboard is, like all Google tools, if you type in Jamboard, google.com, it's there. No, it'll see the website. And if you're logged in with your G Suite and Glow account, then it should take you straight there.
You can also access Jamboard through your Google Drive. If you go to Google Drive and go to More, you can get it through that as well.
I can see a really good question from Jane Thompson. Is there any other functionality that allows full class/teacher interaction in real time? There are those tools. So in some authorities, they have access to Meet, Google Meet. And Google Meet is a lot like Zoom or other video conferencing tools you've used. I do use them in Highland, but they aren't available everywhere. And again, that's for various different reasons to do with child protection and the decisions that different local authorities are making. And I can completely understand why some authorities and some schools are not using Meet and video conferencing at the moment, and maybe won't use it in the future. There are tools that can be used, but it is something you need to speak about, maybe your head teacher about. Okay, Ailey, so far it's been focused on the digital side of things, but my real question is what it looks like with a blend of classroom-based and digital at-home learning. Hi, Neil, Robert, would you like to field this one?
That's the $1 million question. In Highland, that's one of my remits, is to try and come up with the solution to that. And to be honest with you, we had a meeting this morning chatting about this, and I think the key is not so much to think about digital tools and think about the kind of traditional tools separately. It's almost thinking about what you would keep from the digital successes that you might have had during lockdown. So whether that's just simply Google Classroom, whether that's simply the idea of actually assigning work and getting that kind of collaboration through Google Classroom, and combining that with the, I suppose, the offline tools. To be honest with you, I don't think any authority have necessarily got that cracked yet. Niall?
Yeah, just what you've said, totally agree. I mean, it's not going to be an easy job, I guess, but the amount of upskilling that all of our teachers and staff have done in Scotland throughout lockdown has been fantastic. So it would be a case of taking the skills that you've learned and trying to put them into place over the next couple of months as best as you can.
Can I just say also that I think, I'm not trying to be political here, but I think that we need to be really clear that when we go back to face-to-face learning, that blended learning, the message we have to give to parents and to pupils is that blended learning is not something that we've done, or remote digital learning is not something we've done because of the pandemic, that we've done it because actually there are benefits to it. So it's not simply a case of, as has been said recently, you know, of sort of, we'll go back to face-to-face and never touch blended again. I think it's a collaboration of both.
Yeah, I would say from the experience that I've had in Highland, I've been using these tools, and we're very lucky in a way to have been using these tools before the lockdown for quite a while, for a few years. And I was using Google Classroom largely in the same way I'm using it now. And I will continue whether, you know, after lockdown, because I think it's just a great set of tools, and it really helps those students who find, you know, some aspects of learning difficult, and maybe school refusers, people that find things difficult. But it's just a great way, you know, to organize work. Liam Middleton says, can we check pupils' Google Hangout chats? You'll need to speak to the administrators in your local authority about that. There are ways of checking what people have been talking about. Depending on your authority, students might not be able to use Google Hangouts chats at all. It might be blocked for them. So that really is a decision up to local schools and local authorities.
Don't forget Hangouts is closing as well. Hangouts will be turned off at the end of June. So Google Meet is the updated model of a version of Hangouts.
There will be something called Google Chat as well, which we'll see what that looks like. Selena asks, what is the best way to teach using a whiteboard type function on Google Meet? That is tricky. If you have a touch screen in some way, you could write on the screen using that. what I was doing just there was sharing my screen in exactly the same way that you would in a Google Meet, and showing a slideshow. And if, say, you were sharing PowerPoint and you had access to a whiteboard, you might feel silly about it, but you could, in front of a web stream, be writing on a board that way. I don't know, guys, do you have any solutions to that?
One thing that I'd recommend is if you're using like a digital whiteboard, you could use Screencastify to record your lesson prior to actually handing out the lesson. So it'd be asynchronous for your pupils. So you could do everything on the whiteboard, record everything, save it with Screencastify, and then share it out with your pupils.
Yeah, I think that's a great way. And
I really use Jamboard as well. If you shared Jamboard and that was what you presented on the screen, you could actually be writing on Jamboard while everybody else was looking at Jamboard as well.
Yeah, no, I think it was a great suggestion. I would say that there are loads of tools out there, loads of add-ons you can go for, loads of training on YouTube you can look at. We will follow this up with talking about other training opportunities that might be coming down the line. But a lot of how, for example, I've got these skills of watching YouTube videos, going to different meets and chatting about it. There's loads of stuff out there. And Barmer asks, what are the essential things you must have in order to run this? I suppose that question, do you mean run this webinar or run Google Classroom? For Google Classroom, you need a GSuite within Glow account or a GSuite account outside of Glow. Either way works. You need a computer, you need your brain, and you need to think it through. For this webinar you can see we're using something called StreamYard. We're just using our work computers. You can see in the background our homes. It's not too complicated. And you see the student view of Google Classroom. I wish a really easy way to do that. What most of us tend to do, well, what's your answer, Robert?
I'm going to let Niall answer this one.
From Niall. Can you see the student view?
One thing that I did was I used a different account. So I used a different account to be a pupil, and I added myself in as a pupil to my classroom. So I am both the teacher, and then on a different account, I am the pupil as well. To be honest, once you get used to it, on Classroom, the only real difference is having the marks button up at the top. For people, there's not much difference that they're seeing. And the only other thing would be when they get the assignments and they can click hand in and send that to you.
That's great. It is worth having a look at just so you can see what the kids see. So you can tell if they're being silly when they're saying they can't do it. Can pupils open a video link that is copied onto a Google Doc, which is only for viewing, not editing? Yes, absolutely. So you can open links. You could have a link. You could have a Google Doc that's just a series of links to YouTube videos, and the task could be to watch those YouTube videos. It's a really good way of creating like lists of resources. Okay, any other questions? There's a few good suggestions, like people preparing lessons. Yeah, sorry, Robert.
I was going to say, people have asked about videos that they could watch. I've just sent Olivia the link for the Highland Digital School Hub, which has got recordings that Niall, Tom, myself, others have done, really about every conceivable tool, all the GSuite tools, things like Screencastify. I think, Tom, you did one on using rubrics. So there's a kind of full range of videos which are available to the public. Things on online safety, book creator, anything like that. There's also literacy stuff up there. So if you're looking for videos on how to use these different tools, go to that address that hopefully will appear on the screen shortly.
Adding to that as well, a wee bit of self-promotion here. If you type in my name into YouTube, I've got, I think it's over 50 videos now on how to use different products from GSuite to using all the websites that we've mentioned as well. So if you type in Niall Ridgway into YouTube, you'll find loads of videos there to help you too.
Absolutely. And if you want to send that link into Libby, then we'll post it up as well. Niall is the veteran YouTuber. Okay, we're going to finish off today. I've just got a couple of things to show you really quickly, or just to suggest. I'd just like to say thank you to Niall and Robert for joining me today. It's been really great to have your expertise in the comments and to have your comments on the comments, and really support people, because I think in this situation, it's really great to have a community of teachers who are helping each other out. And I know I've learned a lot from you guys, and it's great to have that opportunity to share stuff. So we'll say ta-ra, and I owe you a drink.
Thank you.
Okay, so last of all, we've done the question and answers. And the last thing to say is, do you need more training? So most authorities will have some sort of training provided for Google Classroom or Teams if you're using Microsoft products. And there are people that can support you in every single authority. However, I have this interesting role with Education Scotland where my job is to help support people through the use to use G Suite within Glow. So if you are looking for more training, then please get in contact with me. Probably the easiest way to do that is through Twitter at Mr. Tom Coles, at Mr. Tom Coles. It came up a second ago. Hopefully it's coming up on your screen again. And that's a great way to get in contact. Send me a message, let me know what authority you're in, give me your professional real email, and we'll talk about it. I can provide training direct to a school. I can provide training to a local authority. I could talk about planning training. I really think the experience in Highland over the past few years has been really, really useful. And there's some great resources that we can share with people across Scotland if people are after that. So please get in touch and please subscribe as well to the SATE feed. There will be another session on Monday with Raymond Soltaszek about reading for understanding, analysis and evaluation. Maybe a little bit more secondary this time, a bit more in my wheelhouse, but it should be interesting for looking again at blended learning techniques. And thank you. We'll finish there to today. Bye.